You're listening to Your Financial Identity with your host, Renee Hansen, where we explore relationships with money. We're talking about how our money stories, values, knowledge, skill set, and experiences develop financial identity, bringing awareness to financial behavior. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in today. We're going to be talking about the fear of success and money. There's a lot of emotions around that. So today we're going to explore that. And we look forward to hearing your thoughts after the podcast.
Okay, let's get started. When I read the book, one of the things that I heard you talk a lot about was the love of money and how you want people to fall in love with their money. But what do you do if you don't know what kind of relationship you're going to have with your money?
I think it's interesting because we do have to explore and label what are our emotions around money? What is my relationship with money? And if we don't know what words to pick, it makes it a little bit difficult to say, well, this is what it is. I mean, some people might say, I think I want a divorce from my money because they can't get along with it. There's always a problem going on financially. And part of that is just life. But the other part is the aspiration of having a lot of money. And one might say, well, it's very easy to fall in love with your money when you have a lot of money. But there's actually an emotion around that of having too much money. And it's the fear of success. That's the fear of being successful, both professionally and financially.
I've never really thought of money as a thing that I have emotions around. I've always sort of thought of it as a tool. I've known that I need enough of it to pay my bills and do things that I want to do. And so it seemed like the more you could get, the better off you'd be. So this idea that you could struggle or have fear when you end up with too much money is really counterintuitive to me. Could you explain what that looks like for people?
Part of it is the expectation. So when you have just enough money to do all the things you need, you're meeting your expectations, and it's pretty equal or even. I need enough money to do these things, and I'm satisfied, and I'm happy, and I don't need any more. And those people are, honestly, you can almost admire them. I used to think, I admire the person who on Friday afternoon clocks out, gets a six-pack, hangs out with their friends, and those are the expectations. I don't need any more. I don't want any less, but I don't need any more. But there's also then added to those same emotions is the fear of being successful, because now I have to make different decisions. It's not just a six-pack on a Friday night hanging out with my friends. I have responsibilities, and their expectations come along with this success. And so people become fearful of success and what success might hand to them. You've probably heard that old money doesn't make you happy, but it makes misery tolerable, right? So it's not about not wanting the money. It's all the other baggage that comes along when you have it. And they read about it, people see it. We hear about movie stars and athletes and people who rise and fall. So the fear of success is quite large for people professionally as well as financially as the expectations come along. And what if we don't meet expectations?
It's really interesting that you put it that way, because as I listened to you talk about this, I didn't think I really had a fear of success, but now I sort of connect the dots on what you're talking about.
Oh, great. Look what I've done.
Thanks. New fear unlocked. When my wife and I first got married, we had a little hobby horse farm. It was just an acre with a very simple 4-stall metal building, and the house was not too expensive. It was in a really rural area, and the mortgage was very, very affordable. And as I did better at work and she started her own business, we moved to a nicer part of town, bought a bigger property, has a nicer barn on it. There's a lot more infrastructure to maintain. And the way that this resonates with me is I think, well, okay, I have all of this stuff now and I love all of it, but it comes with a lot more responsibility. And, there's a certain level of financial success that we have to support this. And I often spend time thinking about what happens if I lose my job, or what happens if my wife's business has a downturn, and are we still going to be able to support all this? So I guess in a way that's sort of what you're talking about.
It is part of it, is the responsibilities that come with having money. And you think, well, why are there responsibilities when I have money? I just want to buy more. Well, it's because we commit to more. And when we commit to more, it builds on the responsibility and this expectation. But it goes further than that. It actually is the fear of having so much, and being successful. So the athlete that makes it to number one, there's no way, there's no more going up. Yeah. You're number one. And so now there's a expectation of maintaining it. And what if you become more successful? And then more responsibility and more expectations. So it becomes to where it's easier to simply be satisfied with what you have, rather than the expectation of what you have to do when you have money. And it's more than just the expectations of yourself. It's the expectations of others.
Can you expand on that? I don't really quite understand how your own financial success could lead to other people having expectations of you.
Well, many families, let's start with this. Many families, the matriarch or patriarch, when everyone goes out to dinner, there's an expectation they're going to pay. And so now you have the patriarch, let's say, or matriarch, since I'm a matriarch, right? I'm a female. There's an expectation now that, I should pay for everyone. And because everyone is downstream from me on my genealogy. So am I supposed to pay for everything? And do I have expectations that they're going to manage their order at the dinner table, let's say, at the restaurant, so they're going to be respectful of what I'm paying for? Maybe, maybe not. How does that change the relationship? And if we didn't have money and we just got together and had our 6 beers, there are no expectations. So it builds on expectations, not just of ourselves, but of others, then them of themselves and their expectations of me or whoever, of yourself. And this can be very challenging because emotions lead to behavior. And we've discovered that in financial identity, that the 5 attributes will lead to behavior, which influences then your experiences again, over and over again, which builds on your behavior, builds on your identity. Just give me a beer. Let's stop.
It's like a feedback loop, sort of.
It really is. It goes round and round, and it's harder and harder sometimes to reconcile, particularly for those people who never feel that they can reach the level of success that's expected of them or expected of themselves.
Interesting. And so you mentioned this a little bit already, but the 5 attributes that you talk about in the book, right? There's the money story, the values, the knowledge, the skills, and the experiences. And it sort of seems like this fear of money might play into each of those attributes. Each of these 5 attributes has some emotional component to it. Could you talk a little bit about how this fear of money or this fear of success might play in with each of those attributes?
In the early stages of Money Story, as you see, so remember, Money Story is what we experienced first in our lives around money, and our observations, our first experiences, and then we build on that story with additional chapters along the way of life. And early on, those can be your strongest money stories and oftentimes stay with you longest. If you observe a family member that just can't get it done, or suddenly has a big success and they make decisions around overspending and then they don't have it anymore, so there's a sense of success and then failure. when a youngster observes that type of behavior, it creates emotion and can create fear that they build upon in the course of their life. So they continue to have fear of success for fear of losing it thereafter. So I'd rather not have it than to have it and lose it. Isn't there a whole thing about love? I'd rather not. Yeah. At any rate,
I think it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all, though, right?
Well, I'll go along with that, and I think the same thing with money, right?
Yeah, that's probably true.
So, but the fear of losing is a fear of failure, and that is a very tough emotion for many people to deal with. So then we move into the values, and each of us have a set of values when we'll operate to the top 5 values of our top 5 values. When we think about a value, if wealth is a value and security is a value, you can see that they could potentially be in conflict if wealth is threatened. And so the fear of success says, well, if I don't get there, then I don't have to worry about losing it. I don't have to worry about maintaining it. I don't have to worry about living up to expectations. So the values are a very important role in our financial identity and also in the emotions that we have, particularly in this discussion around fear of success and fear of financial success on that. When we get to the knowledge component of it, this can be an intimidation. And so the fear of success and that I make the wrong decisions with the knowledge I have can be overwhelming and paralyzing. Paralyzing meaning that we're not going to take any further steps to be successful. We're just going to stay where we're at. And any time, and listeners, if you've had this where you're just on the brink of really doing something great at work and the big changes it's going to be in potential raises, or if you're a business owner, if you did this, what it can bring to you. If you feel yourself putting on the brake, you're experiencing that fear.
Interesting. Yeah. And another on the topic of knowledge and help me out with the attribute after knowledge.
Skill.
Knowledge and skill, I think, seems to sort of go hand in hand. And as we started talking about this idea of fear of money, and I was thinking about, how this plays out in real life, like a thing that's been in the news a lot lately has been crypto and like the sports betting markets, the things like, I can't remember what it's called, but I think Koshi, where you can bet on prediction markets and things like that. And the way that I thought this sort of fear would come into play around your skills and your knowledge is in some of these like more exotic financial tools or instruments. I'm a very traditional, put your money in the stock market, take advantage of dollar cost averaging, that sort of thing. And I often wonder, like, am I missing out on something here by not participating in things like cryptocurrency or prediction markets and things like that?
So there's a number of things that you hit on this, and let's start with first the glitter of crypto and prediction and gaming and betting, right? I mean, we're keep moving our way to let's just buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
All right. And as people look at the opportunities that could present to them, which is an easy win of success, then it leads into this easy come, easy go. It wasn't that big of a deal. Versus the people who are continually working for success and have this fear of success for fear of falling down. It's a little bit different, the climb up the stairs versus a bungee jump, right? So crypto is like a bungee jump. Woo, Ray, and then you come. And climbing up, the stairs and the fear of falling down is a little bit different because you have more emotions, a longer term period of emotions. For the fear of success, you keep creeping up there. Oh my goodness, there's more. As I look down, the fall can be pretty big. Money by itself can be very, very tempting. The temptation part is I'll be able to do more, but we're not quite sure what more means. And then we build that commitment along the way like you were talking. So it's how you build this success and what the fall looks like that continues to temper, should I go any further because the fall could be worse. So I think you tie into that, and the emotions around it are very different as it ties into your skill set. So a skill set is the ability to do things and execute on the knowledge that you have based around the value system that you possess and the experiences that you've had. That skill set can be frustrating because as you are building this success, you're building skill set along the way. Think about your career. You've done a really good job, and you go back to how easy it was in that smaller location, one or two horses, you get up, you get it done in 30 minutes. And now you have this property. It is not a 30-minute deal. And it's a responsibility, and it's a 24-hour responsibility because you have more horses, you have more stalls, you have bad weather that comes. I mean, so many things that could potentially happen. And you're successful in your career by itself. So now you have this responsibility. How much more successful could you be? What more could you do? And why are you not doing it if there is more? Is it because you become comfortable? You can go out when you want to. You don't need to really do a whole lot. You can handle the responsibilities around the house, the barn. You have a daughter that's successful in college. Things are moving along pretty darn nice. Should there be more? I don't know the answer to that. But is there a fear of achieving more? Because now you have a greater fear of what you could lose, similar to these long stairs that you've been climbing along the way.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I have never really thought of it that way before. And I mean, if you'd asked me this 10 years ago, I would have said, no, absolutely not, because I'm not really happy where I'm at. I have more ambition. There's more things I want. We wanted the bigger property. We wanted to be able to go on vacation. We wanted to be able to provide things for our daughter that she didn't have. But yeah, 10 years later, we've accomplished a lot of that. And there's still things I want to accomplish, obviously. But if you told me that I was going to more or less be stagnant for the next 20 years of my life before I retire, I don't know that I would necessarily consider that an awful thing. But I do think maybe a part of that is because of this stair analogy. And it's the more you add to that, the harder it is if something doesn't go right. Mm-hmm. And I think the bungee analogy that you gave earlier is so apt. I was listening to an interview of some Gen Z kids the other day about their attitude around finances and crypto specifically. And this guy was talking about the fact that he had bought into Bitcoin when it was really high. I don't remember the exact number, but somewhere really near the peak. And then it took a huge dump, lost 20 or 15% of its value or something like that. And he, sort of panic sold it, right? And he just so casually, he said, but I wasn't really that upset about it because it was only $5,000 of my scholarship money.
I wonder if his parents had a different perspective on that.
Yeah, exactly.
It is interesting that the small losses along the way, and sometimes that can build your risk tolerance, and other times it can cause you to be risk averse in making decisions, not just around money, but around life, around job changes, around location moves. Do I want to really bite off more because I'm fearful of being of losing that, even though I'm successful at where I'm at? Yeah, there's huge emotions around all of this, again, when we start with the money story, we go back to that. What were the memories that you had? Was life pretty easy for you to where you went on vacations with your family, you were able to go to the movies, you had the opportunity to buy clothes in the new school season, versus the person who sometimes got money from their parents to do things, sometimes didn't. New clothes were not always the opportunity. Vacations were never even a consideration. You were just happy to have the summer off from school. These build different resiliencies, and this builds different aspirations and fears. So you hear about the people who come from a very difficult background, and they talk about their successes that they will overcome. But the majority don't. The majority do not find themselves in that situation. They're eager to get to the point of a stable life, and they are satisfied with that because they don't want to lose that and go back to where they were. So why would they risk a new job, a move to a new city for a new job? Because what if they lose that job?
Yeah, absolutely.
So not able to take on additional risk in life choices.
They're essentially balancing the upside of what they might get from taking that risk against losing what they already have. And I guess if you've come from a really bad situation and managed to be successful enough to where you're comfortable, the fear of losing that probably outweighs the fear of fear isn't even the right word on the upside of it.
Yeah.
The potential satisfaction, of getting more, being more successful.
Yeah. It oftentimes feels good if people think about the history of how they've moved up in their careers, when they get the bonus, when they get the raise, and they come home and they celebrate, I don't know, a beer, a glass of wine, going out to dinner, whatever you celebrate with, right? And how good this feels because, wow, you've hit another new level of success. And it's professional and it's financial, and this feels really great. And that settles in, and you start spending to that level. And you start feeling like, oh, wow, look what I can do and how I do it. So then you buy a new car and you build on the commitment. Maybe you're making payments. And the next thing you know, you find yourself where you were when you got the raise, which is, okay, now I have this bigger responsibility. There wasn't what am I going to do to continue to be financially secure? It was, how am I going to enjoy the financial successes? And there is a balance between the two, which is where the whole financial identity fits in as you align your values, your goals, and your risk tolerance within your financial identity to live life fully. And what does that mean to you? And that's part of the goals, the aspirations of what you want the future to look like, whether that future is next month, next year, or 20 years from now. Identifying that allows you to work within the framework of your financial identity so that you can build on those successes with less fear of loss.
Yeah, that makes sense. So one of the things I heard you say in there too that seems sort of a corollary to this is, as people become more successful, obviously they take on more things, right? Whether it's the new house, like my wife and I did, or new cars, maybe you get a job and you're in leadership and you're sort of expected to dress a little better, drive a little nicer car or whatever.
Right.
Maybe even if you're not actually expected to do that, you at least have that perception in your head.
Your own expectations, right. Yeah.
And the phrase that I've always heard for that is like lifestyle creep, right?
Yeah.
And so, you might be making a lot more money, but you're not really any better off financially because you've just added all of these obligations, and now you've got that fear on top of it. Can I maintain all of this?
Yes, the fear can build very quickly in that atmosphere and that climate. And you listed all the things that people typically will look to buy as soon as they have more money. Nicer cars, or a newer car, even if it isn't, well, newer would be nicer, but a more expensive car, you move up brand on a car, neighborhood, all of those things you begin to commit to and spend on. And the expectation is that you will work harder to be more successful for the next raise. But again, you continue to go up market and you feel a little fearful of now being the one responsible. So think about in a corporation, you keep moving up and you move to CEO. That's a huge responsibility. You have a lot of people doing the work, but you have to make some very tough decisions that can be difficult.
Yeah, I would pass on that job.
And many people do. because they find a level of satisfaction and their own level of success that works. We're seeing that trend shift in the demographics too, by the way, where the baby boomers were all about climbing the corporate ladder and getting to the top. But the tumble down can be very painful, and we witness it all the time with the shift in executive leadership. You no longer fit the mold. You didn't meet expectations. Oh my goodness, we get to hear that again, right? And so then it becomes difficult, particularly if you've made some pretty big commitments. Now, I will tell you that many people have successfully downsized and have emotionally satisfied exactly where they want to be, where they saw it, they didn't want it anymore. Even if it was taken away from them, they realized that they were not really satisfied at the level they thought, or perhaps they've rationalized that this is quite nice where I am.
So this introduces the other question that I had about this. People have this fear. We've talked about why they get the fear and the ways it can manifest, and maybe some of the bad decisions that get made that pile it on, like the lifestyle creep. But the thing that I've been thinking through this whole, 30-minute conversation is like, well, what do you do about it? What are the tools or strategies that you use to either, I don't know what all the possibilities are, maybe overcome the fear, learn to live with it, try and avoid it to begin with. Are there things that people do for that?
All of those. People will avoid it. Some people just learn to live with the stress of it and just continue on the vein because they don't know an outcome. But the ones that truly find success and satisfaction are those that become aware of what's happening. They're aware of their emotions. They're aware of their financial identity. And every time a financial decision is going to be made, whether it's a financial decision to take a new job or a financial decision to spend money, a financial decision to step back, is they are aligning their values, their goals, and their risk tolerance with their aspirations, which are goals. What do they want their life to look like? What is important to them? Versus just choosing one over the other, which is, okay, I have more skills, so I can take on more responsibility. I will take that job. Thank you very much. But if it doesn't align with their values, then it can be very challenging because there will be conflict with your values in relation to your goals can be very, very challenging and will tear away at all relationships, your relationship with money, your relationship with your family. If you can't come in alignment as a family to do the things that you feel are right, there will be conflict and there will be a failure of relationships. Now, it doesn't mean you can't repair them, but there will be a failure somewhere along the way. So start with understanding who you are what your financial identity is. Once you understand where you are on that level, then it's a matter of, do you want to improve your relationship with money via your financial identity? Again, it's your values, starting with your money story, then your values, your knowledge, your skill set, and your experiences. Do you want to continue with the experiences, and can you recognize the experiences that were not good? And rather than just saying, I'm not going to do that again, how are you going to not do that again? And that starts with awareness, and when you're offered an opportunity, that you fully explore the opportunity and ask the questions within the comfort of your financial identity. Many people don't feel that they understand themselves well enough financially, and then they're fearful of asking any questions, which limits their ability to gain knowledge and a skill set along the way to build on good experiences. Once you're able to do that and you align, then you're able to remain aware. And remaining aware allows you to respond to opportunities versus react. A good example of that is the fear of missing out, right? You're all talking about crypto or these new opportunities, and everyone else sounds so very smart about it. Well, I'll just do it because clearly they're smart. They may not be smart at all. They're just good at talking the game, right?
And everyone always is very happy to share their successes and be very quiet about their failures.
That's for sure. But they also want to make sure that other people are doing the same thing so that if they fail, They don't fail
They're not
alone.
alone,
Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic when you hear people talk about it. And most of us are uncomfortable asking the question when you see someone talking about, yeah, I bought crypto today. Did you buy crypto? No, I plan to do that this week. I got to get some work done. I'll be back.
Yeah.
Right? Rather than saying, I didn't, why did you buy it? And ask those questions so that you can gain understanding of not only how they did it, but what were they thinking when they did it. And then you can better take the time to respond on whether this is good for you or not and how you want to enter it. So we're so fearful of asking other people questions because they act as if they know, and well, I should know too, I guess. But we don't know. We don't have an educational system that teaches us how to manage money. What happens when we need to make decisions around money? We are simply thrown to the wolves, quite frankly, with our first job.
Absolutely. Yeah, if I had to sort of boil the whole idea down, it would be a combination of have some introspection, be at least self-aware enough to recognize what is going on and what's this interaction between your values and your money story and your experiences, and being able to recognize that that's happening instead of just reacting to it emotionally. And then also perhaps have the humility to say, I don't know, and have more of a curious attitude instead of a embarrassed attitude towards things.
What happens so often is our emotions start coming up and we have that fight or flight, right, in our amygdala. And this is true on many financial decisions. But when we're in this situation where someone else is talking about it and we're wondering, okay, do I just want to escape this conversation or do I really want to understand it? Take a deep breath. Let them continue to talk, take in a couple deep breaths and ask yourselves, what am I thinking? And what am I feeling? That's that awareness, groundness that you were just talking about. And from there is, can I begin to understand this to determine if this is going to align with what is important to me? You don't have to make a decision. You're not at a computer where you can buy crypto right now, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to make the decision, but can you at least garner some information and better assess? And you might find yourself feeling a little calmer and looking at the person who is talking and asking some of those deep questions, such as, wow, how did you come to make this decision? Was it impulsive? Where did you learn it? Now you're garnering information, and they may be self-reflecting themselves. It'll be interesting to see what the answers are, and then you can assess later whether this is a good decision for you or not, or if you want more information.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So one of the things that we have is a close cousin is this fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Opportunity, right? Like, oh my goodness, we were just talking about that with crypto. I better do it because I'm going to miss out because clearly it's working for them. Although there are plenty of examples that it doesn't work for people.
Oh yeah, I think I read some statistic recently. It said that something like 95% of people who've bought crypto specifically have lost money, and only like 5% are profitable in the long run. But it's not even just that. I mean, I remember having this conversation. Oh man, it must have been 2012, 2013. I was sitting in the lunchroom at work with a bunch of my friends, and Netflix was a new company at the time. Mm-hmm. And all of them were like, oh yeah, I bought Netflix. It's doubled in value since I bought it 3 months ago, and I'm still just sitting here putting all of my money in the S&P 500 thinking, am I making a mistake right now?
Yeah. Long term, it's interesting because Harry Markowitz's Modern Portfolio Theory tells us that 91% of our returns actually come from a well-diversified portfolio. And crypto may be part of that diversification, but not all your eggs in one basket. Only 3% comes from buying the right stock or investing at the right time.
Yeah.
But this fear of missing out makes people feel really, really nervous because the bad feels worse than the good feels good. And if you make the wrong decision, it can be very, very challenging. And when you see other people who have made the decision to do something and it works out for them, then we fear, well, why didn't I do that? And then the next time you see another opportunity, where ultimately people will sometimes then quickly make a decision because they've missed so many other opportunities and it was the wrong decision on that. So the fear of missing out is an interesting concept for people, along with the fear of being successful. Because when I said the bad feels worse than the good feels good, again, that fall feels really, really bad, even though they were probably quite successful before they made the fall. Did they plan along the way to where they could at least break the fall?
Yeah.
So when we think about the fear of missing out, coupled with the fear of being successful, what we tie in here is the inability to remain aware of what you are doing and have a clear path forward with an understanding of what a fall might look like. And again, that's aligning the values, goals, and risk tolerances within the framework of your financial identity so that you can feel comfortable and confident in making financial decisions and you understand the risks that you have. When we talk about this, we would love to hear your stories, listeners. Have you had a fear of missing out on something? And we'd like to hear what your decision was and what the outcome was. And would you make the same decision again? I'd also like to hear about those people who feel like they're on the cusp of success and they're fearful of taking the next step. Please email us at info@yourfinancialidentity.com. We'd love to hear your story and interview you on the podcast.
All right. Thanks so much.
We've had a good time today, and we hope you have too. If you have enjoyed this discussion, please rate or review us on Apple Podcast and like or subscribe on YouTube. And if you'd like to be a guest, please reach out to us at yourfinancialidentity.com.